Thanks, Simon. Thank you very much, and thank Deanne for your continued work. It's been, I was reflecting when I first came to Congress and I first got an opportunity to sit down with Simon and chat about the direction that we needed to go. We were talking back in 1998 about bridging the digital divide, and here we are today. Let me say that the efforts on the part of Simon and Rob and everybody at NDN have just been extraordinary. As Simon indicated, I think the whole term of globalization, it's a fascinating term that is used. I just came from a meeting of the machinist union this past Saturday where we were talking about globalization. They have a different perspective, I would say, than economists have. But I think this is the big challenge, and what I'm so excited about is that the work at NDN has been to make sure that no American is left out of the economy, and that we proceed in a manner that I think people will be able to understand and accept, and policy makers will be able to react to. I believe that we are dealing with what I would call parallel structures of democracy. One structure people are very familiar with in terms of its great productivity, the economic engine of this country, and what we're able to accomplish on almost a daily basis. We are the preeminent economic, military, cultural, social leader in the world, and in large part because of our entrepreneurial nature, of our pro-growth attitude, and our can-do nature, all of which government should make sure that it's out nurturing and making sure that we continue to proceed down a pro-growth path. But with that, and it's a very democratic institution because there are many shareholders who vote on a regular basis who are concerned about making sure, as part of participating in this great economic engine, they receive the greatest return on their investment. And increasingly, more and more people are becoming concerned about the creation of wealth and making sure that they're investing wisely. And especially as the world becomes smaller and shrinks at the pace of technology and innovation, even more important, and especially why community colleges will be such an important aspect in our future training, that we make sure that there's a guarantee for all of our citizens to participate fully in a global economy. But as all of you in this room know, there are, when you have a system driven like that, there are winners and losers. There are problems that take place. There are gaps that occur. And so that other democracy, the one established under our Constitution, we the people, and in our efforts to form a more perfect union, have got to come up with a way to bridge those economic gaps. And obviously, at this day and age, I like to say that if globalization is the new reality, and it is, then if that's the new reality, what's the new deal for the American public? Or what's the real deal for the American public? And so the efforts from a governmental standpoint have got to be, how do we bridge this gap? We know about the great disparity in health care. We know that there are 47 million people that are without health insurance. So we know that that has got to be a major policy initiative in order, with these parallel democracies existing side by each, that to fully participate and not find yourself victimized by globalization, but be able to be part of what I guess Friedman would call the trampoline or the springboard that provides you with the economic viability to exist within that. And there are three important segments to that. One is healthcare, the other is education, and the universality of education, not only K through 12, but I would argue pre-K through 12, but also in the guaranteeing and the enabling of every American citizen to have access to our community colleges for very focused, specific training that will allow them to be able to get the training that they need to get a job in the evolving economy that we have, which is why the work of NDN is so important, why this paper is so important, at least in making sure that you're providing the technological competency and the tools that people are going to need to compete in a global economy. All of that, the education, the healthcare, is also tied to something that I don't think NDN gets enough credit for, and that's at the heart of where we need to be. I call it the Augie and Ray's test. Now, most of you are probably not familiar with Augie and Ray's, but it happens to be a local hot dog hamburger stand in East Hartford, Connecticut, where machinists and insurance industry and everybody kind of gather and have their morning coffee or their afternoon hot dog or burger. And, but there's a lot of common sense, straightforward, putting on no airs conversations that ensue, primarily about the Red Sox and the Yankees and the University of Connecticut and, you know, politics thrown in here and there. But, you know, they know that the world is changing. They know that things are different. They just don't understand why they have to lose a job in order for the country to succeed. And, you know, they moan and complain and grouse about the fact that, gee, CEOs are making a ton of money out there. But deep down inside, they want wealth for their own families. They aspire to be successful. They want to thrive, but they don't know why companies have to locate offshore in order for them to achieve that. And so how do we bridge those gaps? And what they care about most, and they do care about human rights, and they do care about climate change, and they care about the environment, but what they care most about is the ability to stare across the kitchen table and look at their spouse or their children and let them know that they are the provider, that they are providing for their family, the dignity that comes from a job. And without having the assurances that as you look across the table, that there will be health care for your children, or that your wife is going to be able to get that cancer treatment that is much needed, and the screening and the testing and all the preventative things that you need to have, that your kids are going to have an educational opportunity, that they will get the training that they need in order to succeed. And of course, none of that is possible unless they have a job. And these are the big challenges for Democrats. And with the, I realize I'm painting with very broad strokes here. But this is why the work at NDN is so important, to make sure that we're providing the intellectual underpinnings, to make sure that we're focusing on the kind of tasks that will allow us to attain and reach those goals, but also in the process understanding and appealing to the aspirations of our people, of the nation, so that there is the opportunity for them to succeed. Simon and I were talking earlier, and I was saying to Rob, I'm on my way to a markup and that's going on as I'm speaking on the Ways and Means Committee. And working in Congress, it can be, it certainly is a great experience and one that I cherish, but it can be frustrating because you're dealing incrementally, it seems, always around the edges. And the wonderful thing that's happening I think, out there generationally is that you see this thirst for change. You see this dynamic that's unfolding where people are getting in a very instant, real-time period to look at the way that Congress moves forward is creating a great deal of anxiety. The key, I think, is to turn that anxiety and that concern into a grassroots movement that does what every traditional movement does, and that John Kennedy explained best, describing the French lieutenant who said, when asked how he leads, he says, "I figure out which way my troops are going so I can get in front of them." And that's what's happening out there, not only in this country, but around the world. And so it becomes even more imperative for people in public office to understand that. Most great changes that take place in a democracy, contrary to popular belief, do not happen on the floor of the House of Representatives or the Senate, and they're not the brainchild of any legislator. They happen because there's a movement that takes hold. Ideas and the vitality of ideas become that important and engaging and contagious that they move the country forward. And you can take any movement, whether it was civil rights, whether it was education, whether it's the environment, or whether it's the kind of thing that we need today to make sure that we're keeping a pace with the technological change that is causing this massive shift and these gaps that are occurring because of that within our society. In order to preserve the great republic and the democracy that we richly love, and to make sure that we keep that economic engine stoked, it's important that we come up with the way to bridge those gaps. And I applaud NDM for its work. I look forward to working with you. I wish I could stay for the panelists. Alec and I have talked before. I commend you for your work. I wish I had a chance to stay and listen to Misty as well, but unfortunately time doesn't allow for that, and especially given a markup. So thank you once again for the opportunity to appear before you, and congratulations again to Simon and Rob and NDN.